Welcome to Roots of Faith. I'm Renee Richard, and today we're in Iberville Parish visiting the church parish of St. Gabriel. This parish is one of 6 colonial parishes established in the 1700s that are now in the Diocese of Baton Rouge. There were 3, Point Capee is our oldest, but there were 3 that were given the status of parish or proclaimed to become parishes in 1770, and that would include St. James, Ascension, and St. Gabriel. So we know from the paperwork that this church came into existence in that time frame, 250 years ago, which they just celebrated here with a big event. And so the roots here go back many, many years. There is a church that sits on this property that was actually built by those early settlers that is still in existence. It's one of the oldest existing, or the oldest existing church in the Mississippi River Valley. And of course, the emphasis is always about the old St. Gabriel Church. But we're here today to talk about what's going on in the vibrant people of the community of St. Gabriel. But in talking about that, the land that we're on was actually donated or given to this church in the 1700s by the Spanish government. So its roots go very, very deep here. And the river that's out there right in front of this church, in that time frame, we've said this many times in shows, it was like an interstate. That is how they traveled. But because of that, this church has been, the property has been moved back, the old church has been moved back. So join us as we explore all of this on this episode of Roots of Faith. I have as my guest today Father Charles Landry. Father Landry, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Very good. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your ministry. How long have you been here?
I've been here for 11 years. Came from St. Francisville, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and Jackson, Our Lady of Perpetual Help. I love country life because I was born and raised in the country.
That's right. We have that connection to Assumption Parish.
In Napoleonville. And to me, it's just a wonderful way of living.
That's it. Now, you just celebrated an anniversary, right?
We celebrated 250th.
Oh, here.
Parish,
I was talking about you.
I celebrated my 37th anniversary on February 5th. And then I was ordained in Napoleonville. Monsignor Landsman was a very, very important factor of my life and my religious choice. Prior to being a priest, I was a religious brother. I belonged to the Redemptorist Order. And then from that, I spent 7 years in that role as a religious brother. Then I requested ordination, and I got ordained. And my first assignment was in St. Alphonsus in Greenwood Springs.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we've done a show in St. Alphonsus.
I've been connected with the diocese very intimately. Bishop Ott I was the first ordination after Bishop Ott was named Bishop of Baton Rouge.
That's awesome.
So I will always hold that as a great honor. And I've been in and around Baton Rouge and the diocese since its beginning.
Very good. So you've been here long enough. We got a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this parish in terms of demographics. The St. Gabriel Parish, your boundaries are all of Iberville Parish on the east side of the Mississippi River.
That's correct.
So Bayou Manchac would be your northern boundary, and you border on St. George,
St. George.
Not very far away. And then as Iberville Parish gets close to the interstate, really is mainly swamp in that region. But the city of St. Gabriel was made a city about 15 years ago, which indicates growth. So tell us a little bit about the demographics of this parish, about how many families, and is it a young parish, older parish, or a mix?
It's a mixture. We have the elderly community that's been born and raised in the area, and we have a trickling of younger people coming in. I noticed in the years that I've been here, I've been doing more baptisms.
Oh, good.
We have a very vibrant ministry with Children's Church every Sunday morning at our 10:15 Mass, and I notice more and more younger kids, children coming and attending. More of our younger parishioners are family members, and it's really, I feel it's very unique in the sense of that being at St. Alphonsus at one time, and at the time I was there, it was one of the bigger parishes in our diocese. And then my first year I did 50 weddings at St. Alphonsus. That's how big it was.
Yeah.
And if I do 50 weddings in the 12 years I'm here, that'll set a record, I think.
Wow, so yeah, really.
But it's continually growing more and more.
It is. It's almost like a suburb of Baton Rouge because you're so close in. For us, it was quick. You know, you're not really that far. And I think more people are moving to Ascension Parish for schools and that kind of stuff. You were talking about the youth. This parish does not have a Catholic school.
No.
Do they attend more of the public schools, or do they go
We partner.
Okay.
We partner in the Catholic school system with St. Teresa's.
Very good.
In Gonzales and St. John's in Prairieville. And we have a bus service that comes and picks up our kids.
Oh, great.
And brings them every morning and takes them back every evening. And we've been doing that for the last 11 years or so that I've been here. Mm-hmm. And then our partnership means I'm involved in whatever school activities are going on. Each one of us in the partnership has a particular class that we're called chaplains to. Oh, and so I'm the chaplain to the 6th grade class. I've been in 6th grade for the last 11 years. I haven't moved yet. But, and a part of that is we have a wonderful ministry within that. When the children have do their segment on the corporal works of mercy, we have an opportunity to bring them to Carville, which is a part of my parish boundaries, or our parish boundaries. And then what we do is we show them the history of what made Carville so beautiful an institution, and then they understand how the church and the government work together for the first time that I've known for my lifetime to do something very merciful and kind and loving for people who, through no fault of their own, were born with such birth defects. But it's a beautiful ministry, and we teach in a living way the beauty of the corporal works of mercy. The chapel Sacred Heart was their chapel, and the stained glass windows are all corporal works of ministry. They have a wonderful museum at Carville that tells the history.
That's it.
And then how the sisters came over, three sisters came over knowing full force that they weren't going to go back because of the quarantine position of the disease.
And you mentioned the chapel. That chapel, that is a mission, official mission of
That's correct.
St. Gabriel. So you have Mass there.
I have Mass there every Sunday morning at 8:30.
Now the people that come, is people in the area, or is it?
Some of the people that come from the area, but mostly is for the cadets in the YCP program, Youth Challenge program, that is done by the National Guard peoples there. Right. And so they come. We basically, I do the Mass, we do the Mass there because of them. Part of their training or their processing is that they have to choose a faith in which they will worship every week.
We were talking about Carville. And so for our viewers that don't know, that was the leper colony that was established by the nuns. And they are no longer, those persons afflicted with leprosy are no longer in that facility. The facility now is a National Guard command station in that area. And then there's also the Youth Challenge program that is affiliated with that.
That's correct.
Now that is a separate ministry than what we were talking about with the 6th graders, right? But y'all do minister to the kids over there, correct?
Yes. Every Sunday at our 8:30 Mass, we have Mass at Sacred Heart, and a part of the reason for the Mass is also to give the cadets, the Youth Challenge cadets, an opportunity to attend service. Part of their requirement in the program is that they have to attend a faith service every week.
Right.
And so what we do is we offer sacrifice. And the beauty of that program for them is we include them in ministries. The ushering, the giving of, bringing of the gifts, serving, reading, and we have a few that have been Eucharistic ministers. So what we do is we try to incorporate all that within their own element of the program that they have to go through.
That's interesting. And see, that ministry is just so different from other parishes.
Right.
But you're in another unique situation here in St. Gabriel, and that is the fact that there are two penal colonies here.
That's
I mean,
correct.
you have a long history of that. From the 1800s, the government bought up plantations and brought prisoners and made them into prisons. So you have Hunt, Elan, I always say it wrong. Elaine Hunt Correctional Center, which is for men, and it is, varying degrees, but I mean, there are people that have life sentences there, and they have a capacity, I think, when I was researching, about 1,800 inmates over there. And then you've got the Louisiana Women's Institute, correct? So that's another ministry.
That's correct.
That is directly under your care.
That's correct.
So tell us a little bit about your role in that.
Well, I'm officially the chaplain to the program. The blessing is we have a number of my brother priests that participate in the program, so I don't have to
it's not totally
weekly meet. But I am the chaplain, and the deacon chaplain, Deacon Easley, and I work together. Any burials, any anointings of the sick, et cetera, I'm on call. And meeting with them and counseling and so forth.
Yeah, when we did this parish just celebrated the 250th anniversary, and one of the things in the parish hall that we used was a wooden plaque of thanks to St. Gabriel from Elan Correctional Center. So I knew that there was a big presence from the ministries here.
That's right.
To them. So that's, so unique here. Are there any other ministries that stand out in your mind in terms of just church? I know you have a fantastic choir. I've been here so often in the past few weeks with the big event, with music, with instruments,
Going back to Carville, we have a beautiful ministry. I have a wonderful deacon, Kirk, Duplantis and his wife, Rosalind, and we formed a ministry at the end of the cadets program, which is a 4-month program. We have a day of recollection with them on a Saturday morning.
Oh, awesome.
And Roz and Deacon Kirk are the directors, and I'm just there for a pretty face, pretty much. but they spend a good morning, and they reflect on sharing their life and giving them encouragement. Because once the young men and women leave, they go back in many ways to where they come from. And so we want them to know that there is a source that they can come to and turn to when they feel like they're going back down the wrong road. And
Absolutely.
I think and the National Guard peoples are very, very supportive of that ministry with us.
That's awesome.
And very grateful.
Do you know about the number? I mean, because I have no idea. Like, are we talking about 25 kids for this morning reflection, or are we looking at 100?
We can have anywhere between 10 to 30 to 40.
Wow. Okay. Just to give an idea of how many kids are going through this program,
Right.
on a regular basis.
And the beauty of the program is it's a program of mercy. If I have my history correctly, Judge Polazola, former federal judge, was concerned, how can we help our young men and women expunge their record as a young teenager or a young 21-year-old? What can we do to help them? And they formed this program, and it's a boot camp. And they have to come voluntarily. They can leave anytime they want, but they also know the repercussions of what their decisions are.
Right.
And so I just wonder, again, when I think back on the history of what Carville is all about, you had the church and the three sisters coming from France, wanting to do something special and treat people special who had, through no fault of their own, had such a disease. And they really made a home for them, a town for them. They were self-sustaining. And after I buried, maybe 5 years ago, I buried one of the last of the patients. And within the 11 years that I've been here, the Youth Challenge program is becoming more and more what the past was to the present. And the men and women of the National Guard are very strong in working with us, and we work with them more. But it's just a beautiful program for mercy, of giving these kids another opportunity and a chance.
we've been talking about the great and unusual ministries that you have here at St. Gabriel. Let's talk a little bit about your physical plant, this beautiful church that we're standing in.
Right.
As many of our viewers know, but not everybody may know, this is the second church. The original old church, you're one of the few parishes that has a historical beginning.
Yes.
That we just celebrated 250 years. The actual date will be Valentine's Day.
That's correct.
For 250 years.
Yes.
But we know from your history that the original church that was built for St. Gabriel, that when it was established, is still standing here on the property. In its full capacity. It's been altered a little bit, and we know that the Acadians and the settlers that were given land along the river here were the ones that built it for the most part, and that those families are still part of this community in a very large way.
Right.
And they are very beneficial to this parish, very active in this parish.
Right.
But this church was built by Father Peter in the 1950s, early 1950s, 1953. And it's understandable, having been in the old church, this is much larger and bigger. Now, over time, it's been fixed up, it's been renovated. There are things in this church, though, that came out of that old church. I know the bell is one.
The bell is one.
I think the Stations of the Cross.
The Stations of the Cross.
A couple of some of the statues were.
Some of the statues, that's correct.
But when this church was built in the 1950s, this was pre-Vatican II. So
That's
there was a
correct.
communion rail. It did not look like this in any way. And it wasn't until Father Keeler's administration, I believe,
correct.
in the 1980s, that it was totally
correct.
conformed with Vatican II.
That's right.
Part of that would be removing the communion rail, and that's incorporated here too, is it not? It's behind us as part of what like a wall set up vertically. So that's really unique here as well. Is there, what else? Some of the stained glass windows were brought in with him.
Excuse me.
And you have since upgraded some of this.
We've added on, we added on our portico share, and we've added on additional parking space. Like I said, we're not booming, but we're trickling in more and more, and then just maintaining and bringing up to date a lot of the facility, and we're looking at, in the future, looking at putting another building together where we're going to have to extend our religious education program and give it its own building. It's using the PAC Center, which is good and bad because we have a nice facility, but it closes it down for 9 months. But we're dreaming and looking into the future. And we have a very dynamic spirit of wanting to continue moving on.
That's awesome. Yes.
And then, but our next big project would be pretty much I moved out of the old rectory about maybe 8 years ago. I'm living in Spanish Lakes, which is really nice. But we're now looking at taking the rectory and making that more of a pastor, deacon, center for meetings, and then taking the present administration building and opening it up to religious education, plus open a nice space, wider space and bigger space for our parish offices. But the beauty of the whole situation, like you just said, Father John, in remodeling and bringing the church up to the Vatican II status, used a lot of the pre-existing. And the beauty of here is it's almost we don't throw anything away because it's so beautiful and valuable, and we somehow make it a part of our community. And I like that because being from the bayous, you want to remember your roots. You and I can talk all day long about coming from Napoleonville, but that's what we are. What I like about our community of faith, and like the fact that we're celebrating 250 years of history, but I also like to look at it from the other perspective. We're celebrating 200 years of his story.
Exactly.
We've been here for 250 years, and that's building a community of faith and living the principles of the gospel. You talk about what we do, like at Carville and what we do at the prison ministry. Well, that's all a part of the Corporal Works of Mercy. We have a wonderful program, like I said, with the kids that come from the 6th grade. That's part of it. We bring them to Carville, show them the history, and continuing the message of living his story, you know, in the way we love and care for each other. We're not a big booming community, but we are a big-hearted community.
That was evidence in the work that we did here, helping you out with your anniversary.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
they come out of the woodwork asking what you need.
I was floored.
Because, I mean, the prisons did that for you. Everybody stepped up to the
came on
plate.
board. The prison, excuse me, the Carville men and women.
They come to you.
Yeah, what do you need? That was the question. What can we help
and that just shows the generosity of the community that you're here, you know, the spirit of the community.
And a part of the community we have, well, even John Falls, the wonderful meal. One of his chief executive people is a parishioner of our parish, and he came through. And I mean, it's just that beautiful, wonderful spirit of wanting to be a part of it. And to me, what that says is even though we're small, we're very much alive.
Very much so. And people came from all over. People whose roots were here, left here. I saw for that anniversary, you were saying that. They all came back. They all come back.
They come back every year. All Saints Day, we got a big, nice crowd, and we have a little meal afterwards. Christmas and Easter. I mean, it's, you know, what I love about this community in many ways, if you run down the roads, you will see what I call compound living. Families, their children are now living with their families on the property. And even if they do leave, St. Gabriel never leaves them. And they always come back.
We were just talking about the way this parish is set up, and you mentioned something about people coming back in the cemeteries.
Right.
And y'all do have a cemetery here.
Right.
Your cemetery is one of those because of the way that this parish was founded, like so many others along the waterway, and this, of course, the Mississippi River. You know, the tracts of land were narrow across the front and then extended back for long periods. And this parish actually is on the original land grant from the Spanish government.
That's correct.
And you mentioned that with families living, you know, along the same land. But the problem that presents, and especially in this one, is there's a curve in the river, which means over time, before we had levees like we have now, the church and the cemetery were in a position to be affected by that changing river. And we do know that the church here, the original old church that's still on this property, was moved several times back, and that influences your cemeteries as well.
That's right.
You know, so many people come to our office looking for burials from their ancestors here from the 1700s, 1800s even. When was the last time it was moved? The 1927 flood?
I think it was 27.
They took part of the cemetery. So the cemetery here is not your colonial cemetery because those graves have been lost to the river, correct?
That's correct.
But y'all still have an active cemetery. And
y'all
have built several mausoleums.
Very much so.
Even though you have plenty of property.
Yeah. We are even looking at another mausoleum building. You know, so I mean, yeah, we have a nice extension of our property around. Could almost become an L-shaped cemetery.
You have plenty of room to grow.
Plenty of room to grow. Plenty of room to continue taking care of the dead and the good people. You know, so yeah, we do have. We are in a wonderful spot in that we just have an opportunity for any different things. We're getting ready, like I said, to extend our parking lot. We have plans for the future, so it's a good place to be right now.
Very good. When you say plans for the future,
well,
is that in terms of?
We're looking at, the existing buildings, you know.
The things we talked about earlier.
You're right, and then and being the property, the beauty of the property is that it's open to whatever we see as a need for the future. You know, where our youth group ministry is growing, we're going to be having a youth building one day soon, more than likely, and so there's always room for a lot more.
We've talked about your parish. We've talked about this church, and I would like to revisit the physical structure we're in because there's a few key things that I didn't talk about earlier that I would love to bring to our viewers' attention. If you ever come here, one of the unique things about this church, on the exterior of the wall, Father Klein Peter commissioned an artist, and off the top of my head I can't think of his name, but we do have the documentation in our archives, to do a silicone painting within the side wall. And the beauty of it is it covers the Old Testament, and then it goes into the life of Christ. And at the very end, the last section of it, he depicts Father Klein Peter saying Mass here. It looks like the altar of the old church, and incorporated here, like many other things that were incorporated, into this church from him. The bell that was brought from the old church we didn't mention earlier was a gift from the Queen of Spain, and the insignias are on it. It was hand done in Spain in 1760s, and then brought here for that church. But one of the most interesting things that y'all have here, and I'm not sure you're aware as an artist, I'm acutely aware of his work. One of the parishioners here whose family was exiled to France from Nova Scotia in the 1700s. He was born in St. Malo. His name was Pierre Landry. He comes here in the second wave of Acadians that settled in this area, and he's a planter. He has many children. Later in life, he becomes disabled and he's confined to a wheelchair, and he takes up wood carving. But what is so unique about this man is that, well, he's buried in the cemetery. He was buried in the cemetery here as well. But with his wood carving, he did a self-portrait, a bust of himself, using pieces of glass, the history books say. But it is so vivid, and it shows what Acadians actually look like. The people that settled here, it's a representation of himself, but the character of them, the nose, you see it in the people of South Louisiana. His work is world-renowned. It's in Nashville. He did a piece that's at the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson's home in Nashville. And there is a statue here in the back of church that is absolutely beautiful that I did not know until literally 2 weeks ago. We were putting on this exhibit, and someone mentioned that y'all owned a Pierre Landry piece, and I flew over here, took pictures, and we put it in the exhibit at the last minute. The Cabildo in New Orleans has most of his works. He did many, many pieces. Besides the bust that he did, there's one called the Wheel of Life that hangs permanently in the Cabildo that shows the full circle of life. And his roots are here. His roots are here. His work is here. That is a big part of the heritage of the people that built this parish. And to me, one of the most fascinating things is to see his work, because even the images of the people on the Wheel of Life look like, the Acadian people. So, and I had missed that altogether. So I'm not even sure you were aware of that.
No,
but
I wasn't.
He was, that's a big contribution, and his work is very valuable to what we have here. So again, going full circle to what built this parish, and now closing in, remembering those whose legacies, their art, and everything else lives on in this parish. So, folks, this is a really unique parish, not so much because it has this historical old church in the front, which is the draw, but to visit this church here,
right,
and all the history that it holds as a result of the people that built this community. So I thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful visit back just after a couple of weeks, and again, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank all of you.